Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Please continue to enjoy your fabulous lunch, but in the interest of time and all our afternoon panels, I'm going to ask our luncheon keynote to come up here in a few minutes and have a presentation, and we've got a Q&A. Now, just before lunch, I was telling you about the team from Saulteaux First Nation. They have a very cool conference coming up in October about reclaim, restore, and recover. And the team from Saulteaux is in booth 50 if you want to get more information. And what a nicer place to visit in October, but northeastern British Columbia. So go see Team Saulteaux, right, girls? Yep, we're good? Alrighty. So that's that. We've had questions about the speaker gifts. And this year, C3 Alliance, host of BCNRF, asked, is there an artist, Kevin, in Claytley Country who does something very unique? So our speaker gifts this year, just so you know, are called healing bracelets, and they are put together by Claytley Tenay's own Tammy Gibbs. So I would like us all to thank Tammy for her beautiful beadwork. And we have many, many other Claytley members who also do lovely beadwork. And I'll let Tammy know that you were all appreciative, but that's what she calls it, a healing bracelet. Alrighty. Continue to enjoy your lunch, but I would ask you to turn your attention to the podium here because it's now my pleasure to introduce and welcome Cynthia Hansen, President, Gas Transmission and Midstream with Enbridge, to come to the podium to provide this afternoon's keynote address. Would you give her a warm luncheon welcome? Thanks so much, Cynthia.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for the introduction. It is truly my honor to be here. Before we begin, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we're on the unceded ancestral lands of the Claytley Tenay Nation and thank them for this opportunity for all of us to gather, engage, listen, learn, share, and I hope grow together. Thanks to Elder Darlene McIntosh for her welcoming this morning, and to the Indigenous leaders, elders, government members, ministers, local government representatives, and others in this room are here on behalf of their members and constituents. And of course, thank you to the conference organizers and the community of Prince George for their hospitality. I also want to recognize that Enbridge's assets cross many other treaty and non-treaty and traditional Indigenous lands across North America. And Enbridge is proud, pardon me, is a proud supporter of this Natural Resources Forum. And if you're like me, meeting and connecting with people provides you with so much value at events like this. And so while I'm incredibly proud of the work that Enbridge is doing here in British Columbia, I also recognize that we have much more to do and we need to continue the conversations that we're having and that this is critically important. So everyone at Enbridge believes that we need to foster meaningful relationships with Indigenous people. And this is something that we're committed to, and it's something that I am personally passionate about. And it's also something that we've really articulated in our Indigenous Reconciliation Action Plan. And that plan outlines 22 commitments in economic partnerships, environmental stewardship, sustainability, employment, education, and more. And so it's been a long journey, and it's one that hasn't moved fast enough for many people, but it is a journey, and Enbridge is committed to the work hard to be the first choice of Indigenous nations, stakeholders, local communities, regulators, policymakers, employees, and of course, our investors. Now, as Kevin mentioned, my name's Cynthia Hansen. I'm the Executive Vice President and President of Gas Transmission and Midstream for Enbridge. And it's great to be back in Prince George. And I see some familiar faces, and it's great to see so many Indigenous leaders alongside industry, government, community members. And we're coming together to dialogue and to share perspectives and to represent their rights and interests in British Columbia. And while Enbridge has been in this province for nearly 70 years with our West Coast system, and it's really been the backbone for British Columbia's energy network, delivering natural gas to millions of people both here in British Columbia as well as in the U.S. Pacific Northwest through that time, and recently also including supporting the LNG exports. But we're at an inflection point. We recognize the future of the energy industry in British Columbia will require partnering with First Nations and Indigenous communities. So in Alberta, this worked where we were able to partner with 23 nations in a $1.1 billion deal, and that can work here too. British Columbians should be so proud of the energy produced here and the lives that it sustains. Continuing to advance projects here is essential to growing the economy to benefit all Canadians while growing access to energy beyond our borders. And that's what Enbridge strives to do every day, but we need your help to create mutually beneficial opportunities. Empowering Indigenous nations to become equity investors in projects with the private sector is material to the Canadian economy. But most nations do not have access to this capital without the support of loan guarantees from governments or other financing. To move infrastructure and really any project forward, Indigenous nations have had to become really creative with financial solutions for their projects. And that's what happened with the Government of Alberta through the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation. And there's similar successful programs that exist in Ontario and Saskatchewan. So we do have a model to follow. So to unlock that Indigenous access to capital, the BC government should follow the lead of other provinces and the federal government's commitment. So the BC needs to fund and operationalize an Indigenous loan guarantee program that enables these communities to choose what they want to invest in to achieve vibrant cultures and prosperity for their nations. We're encouraged to hear that the government, BC, is looking at how to do this, and it's great to see the work that governments across Canada have done, but we cannot lose that momentum. It's industry's responsibility to pursue partnership opportunities. With a flexible loan guarantee program, governments can make more opportunities become reality. And as Enbridge continues to deliver natural gas in BC, along with other energies across North America, we do look forward to developing and discussing new partnerships and opportunities that will benefit everyone. So like I said earlier, BC should be so proud of the energy that it produces. And while we're here today in Prince George talking about the benefits locally, it's important to also look beyond our border. Growing the energy industry here also means growing a more inclusive economy, increasing access to energy, and addressing climate change for everyone around the world. This world needs energy. That is just an undisputable fact. And I read recently from a World Health Organization that a couple of years ago they estimated that 750 million people in the world have no access at all to electricity, and about 2.5 billion are still cooking with fuels that are detrimental to their health, like plastics and dung and garbage. So this is that other side of the energy debate that doesn't get enough attention. So when it comes to energy and climate change, some say that we need to make choices and do trade-offs. But starving the world of cleaner, more affordable energy is not the answer to climate change, and it certainly does not help address the worldwide access to energy. It makes both problems worse. So whether it's feeding your family, enabling prosperity, building a more inclusive economy, or importantly, addressing climate change, energy is not the problem, it's the solution. So that's where Canada comes in, and BC plays a very important role. So as we heard from Premier Eby last night, Canada, and in fact in BC, we produce the most sustainable energy in the world. So I believe that we have an obligation to provide that energy to the world. And if we don't, we're doing our economy, and more importantly, the world's environment, a disservice. And that's why at Enbridge, we're investing in 2 research initiatives here in BC as we work together to achieve a lower carbon future. First, we're working with FortisBC and the Ministry of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation, all of whom are in the room here today, to examine how we can transport and distribute hydrogen and on our existing gas systems to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So that study is going to look at the percentage of hydrogen that can be safely transported in our existing systems. And the results of the study will be used to help develop regulatory standards and inform the development of the commercial hydrogen market in BC. So the second study is in support of the great work that Geoscience BC, who's also in the room here today. So that was an announcement yesterday by Geoscience that Enbridge, along with other supporters, is looking at the potential for carbon capture and storage in the Nechano Basin. Sorry, I'm going to get this wrong. Nechako Basin. Nechako. Is that it? Did I get it right? Nechako. Yay! My guys had me practice that, and I knew I was going to mess it up. So the Nechako Basin. See, if I don't think about it, I can do it. So the project's going to look at both the opportunities and the risks. And it's going to catalog, basically all the pertinent existing geoscience data and studies that have been done already. And it's going to provide a public report and that's going to be that atlas that the government, Indigenous groups, industries, academia, and communities can use to create that path forward. And I can say with certainty that at Enbridge, we really believe that we need to support and invest in this kind of important research, and then take that time to explore the potential, those opportunities, so that we can properly work to fuel the quality of life that we want and need while advancing that lower carbon future. So if we understand the challenges and then we create the space to address them and truly capitalize on those opportunities in front of us, we have a very bright future. So we're optimistic about that future and really believe that success is totally dependent on our ability to work together through these complex challenges in order to supply the energy the world needs while helping meet global climate goals. And with that, I will hand it over to Sarah. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, that was fantastic, and yeah, thanks so much for joining us here in Prince George. I know the travel for a lot of people from Alberta and outside the province was a bit of a journey, so we're really excited to have you here. So I do have a few questions, and I see that questions are coming in on Whova, so I encourage you guys to pull out your phones if you've got something pressing to ask Cynthia, or vote on some of the questions that are already posed. But I did have a few thoughts to start, and so one is, with the theme of the conference this year, Shaping Tomorrow, BC's resource sector and future generations, I'm wondering if you can elaborate a bit on Enbridge's commitment to environmental stewardship and community engagement, particularly in BC, where the company operates.
Thanks, Sarah. I think, I kind of mentioned this, that what we need to do, Enbridge and others in industry, is make sure it's truly really early engagement. So we need to really begin at the life cycle. So we have to participate, gather information, work with our community partners and Indigenous partners way before we have a project coming into fruition. So we need to get that background information. We need to build the trust. A particular area, of course, is just environmental stewardship. Our Indigenous partners have such legacy skills in this area, and we need to really rely on that. So that requires us, though, to do that outreach early on. So pre-construction, when you're still at the ideation stage and you're trying to find the right path, get the right resources aligned, and bringing parties together. So that early engagement, and then consistent, transparent, ongoing work to make sure that you're developing the right possible solution. And of course, one of the things that, we've heard a lot about lately is, LNG in BC. For us, it's not BC LNG. We truly believe that it's Indigenous LNG. So any kind of development on a go-forward basis like that is going to require direct participation, ownership potentially, that kind of direct involvement to truly develop the big projects that we're talking about. So those kind of partnerships, I touched on what we were able to do in Alberta with that direct investment in our existing operations there. We'll have to look at that in the future. When it comes to participation in the ongoing development, we can look back and some of the things that we did with our Line 3 program in Canada and the US, where we had a lot of direct training for our Indigenous partners, direct participation in that. The procurement process was something that we can look back and say that that was successful with, over $1 billion of direct spend in Indigenous and businesses. Those are the kinds of things that are going to really allow us to have that engagement, and it's going to deliver on our promise. We've been here for 70 years. We want to be here for at least another 70 more, but we know that that's going to be different as we work. We're going to have to work together and come up with these very comprehensive, well thought out types of opportunities to create true stewardship and community engagement.
Well, great. Thank you so much. So I think you brought up the Geoscience BC announcement, and I want to say a big congratulations to both Geoscience BC and to Enbridge. I see Gavin Durham is sitting front and center, and some of his board members are here as well as Richard Truman. So if people want to talk more, I'm going to say they're right there at table 3. Shout out to Geoscience BC. So that's very exciting news. And so I'm wondering, if we can turn the conversation towards innovation and technology. Can you describe more about or elaborate, how is Enbridge incorporating these things to minimize, environmental impact and contribute to a more resilient future?
So Sarah, I highlighted the 2 things that we've been active in most recently here in BC with our studies that we're doing about hydrogen and how to blend that down into our system and how we can deliver that, and as well as the geoscience for carbon capture and sequestration opportunities. We have had a long history of developing lots of opportunities to really look at how we can incorporate technology into our business and deliver a better platform. I'll hit on just 2 or 3 of them in addition to, the things that we focus in on the lower carbon space. So whether that's renewables for renewable natural gas, or, we're active in wind and solar development as well. But on that technology space, I'll highlight Smart Pipe. Smart Pipe is an investment that we've been working with this company. We do have a direct ownership in it to try and nurture it. But just this last year in 2023, we did a real installation. We worked really hard to get the US regulator to approve this new technology. So PHMSA's approved it, and we did an installation in Roanoke, Virginia, where we were able to, basically it's this composite pipe that you pull through an existing pipe. So where you're not able to go in very easily and re-excavate and relay new pipe, you can pull this through. And this composite technology and doing the construction that way reduces your overall emissions by 70%. And it also incorporates really, when I say smart pipe, this pipe has technology built into it that monitors it with basically continual monitoring. So this is a new kind of phase for us. It's not where you're going to use this pipe all the time, but in certain instances, it's really quite a great new application. And in fact, we won an award last year for that installation in Virginia. So that's one thing we're doing. And then there's some basic things that we look at when it comes to reducing our overall emissions for our gas operations. Methane, of course, has a higher environmental footprint than carbon dioxide, so we're focused on that. And one of the things we were able to do is reduce when you just vent to atmosphere by capturing that gas and recompressing it. So first of all, we plan our outages on our gas pipeline to minimize those kinds of venting events. And then secondly, when we know we're going to have to do it, we can, at our stations, reduce the amount of gas that's in the line, and then if we have to open the line up, we capture it on site and recompress it. So you're really reducing that kind of methane emissions, and that made a very significant difference last year, where we were able to reduce our emissions from that kind of venting by 96%. So those are the things that we're doing to really embrace that kind of technology. And just reducing by how we operate our system, trying to optimize that, doing our maintenance well so we reduce blowdown events or emergency shutdowns. And then looking now, the next phase we're looking at is how we can incorporate AI into our planning, our scheduling, our operations. And that gives us lots of opportunities to incorporate the latest technology that's out there and then support that. So it's not just about what we can optimize, but investing in that so that we can drive our industry and our operations to be better.
Wow, that's excellent. It's very exciting to hear about these initiatives. And I'm going to turn my questions to the Who've app, so I hope you can also see them. You can see what's coming at you. So number one, with 11 votes here, is how will transporting hydrogen in the existing systems benefit BC communities?
So we've been monitoring and involved in hydrogen for a number of years. And in Canada, in our gas utility, we've been blending hydrogen there at about a 2% for a test area for a number of customers. And what it does, by using hydrogen, you're reducing the amount of overall emissions that come into the gas segment. So you're able to displace natural gas using hydrogen. And that hydrogen, if it's a blue hydrogen where you produce the hydrogen and capture any kind of emissions that come and sequester them, or if it's green hydrogen that you use from the production using fuel cells, that offset reduces the overall carbon footprint by just creating an opportunity to blend in hydrogen and use that instead of using natural gas.
And I think you've answered some of the next question there with that answer, but I guess, can you elaborate how are you working together with Fortis, or are you working side by side? I'm just seeing how do the joint efforts of Enbridge and Fortis
Yes, so we can expand on that. Basically, our system is interconnected, obviously. So the gas that is used in a lot of the Fortis distribution systems will be transported through our West Coast system. And so together we decided, hey, this is part of the full value chain. When you're looking at introducing hydrogen into a system, you have to look at all the impacts. So we need to study what kind of an impact does hydrogen have on our existing infrastructure, our pipes, our valves, how that operates, what kind of blend can we get to, but then who are the end-use customers and how is that going to impact any of the assets that are on the downstream side. So what kind of impact that have for somebody's residence if they're using natural gas in their furnace? What kind of impact does that have to an industry that's using that, or commercial operations? So by working together, we can have that full impact so that we can know how we can create a market for this in British Columbia. Each system is unique and different, but we can study that and we can figure out the best opportunities and how we can blend and make sure that we're not creating any new risks, or if there are risks, how we're going to mitigate that and manage that together. So it is that integrated approach that will allow us to set the full regulations, provide input, understand how you can build out that full market from start to finish.
Oh, that's great. And I think it's what I love about this conference is learning so much more about other industries, people that are coming from forestry and mining. So I think the conversation's been really fascinating. Cynthia thought people would be on their phones too busy to listen, but I think everyone's learning a ton. So really appreciate this. So our next question, I mean, this is with UNDRIP in BC. This is a top of mind topic. And so do you have anything you want to share? What does Indigenous equity ownership look like with Enbridge?
Yeah, so I touched on that a bit already, Sarah. You know, to us, there's a full spectrum of what that opportunity could look like. We have had some success in the past as I mentioned, in Alberta, where we were able to provide an opportunity for Indigenous communities, 22 of them, to do a direct investment in an existing operating system. That is helpful because it's existing operations, the communities that are making that investment can see what the normal stream of revenues is, and then they can have that opportunity to get that benefit pretty quickly back into their community. That's a little bit different than when you're developing a new project. So when you're developing a new project, you know, you're going to have to do some upfront investment in that, and that requires maybe a bit of a time lag between when you make your investment during the construction and then when you get those benefits coming back to your community. But there's opportunities for that in that space, and then there's other things that we continue to do. You know, I was talking with someone earlier about you know, our legacy that we have in Ontario with one of the communities out there, where we worked through a number of parties. So there was a contractor, there was some union involvement, there was Enbridge involvement to create a community that supported a number of Indigenous communities, or one Indigenous community, AF6N, that went out and started a number of small businesses to support the kinds of maintenance activities that we do and the construction activities. So there's a whole suite of things that we look at when we're listening with our Indigenous and community partners and government partners as to where can we add value. So Enbridge, because we're in that full suite, you know, we transport energy and many kinds of energy. So when I look at where we currently participate, we have natural gas, we have oil that we transport, we are involved in, as I mentioned, in the renewable space with solar and wind and renewable natural gas. In fact, we've made a big investment most recently in the US, where we're also investing with a company called Divert, where there's food waste, so there'd be opportunities in that space. We're always looking to determine what's the best opportunity to engage with our partners, particularly our Indigenous partners. So I don't think there's one specific model, because you have First Nations that have many different skills, many different opportunities, and many different paths. So it's our job to ensure that these opportunities are available and that we work with Indigenous partners to figure out what that path is and to make sure it's meaningful.
And so just to build on that, and the top question there is, you know, in the recently announced study on the feasibility of transporting hydrogen in the existing pipeline infrastructure, is there a role for Indigenous communities?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I think that as we look to understand what the future uses of hydrogen would be, and particularly building out what that hydrogen economy would be in British Columbia? Absolutely. So as you look, I was in the discussions that we've had even in the last 2 days, hydrogen comes up, and we know that there are a number of specific projects that Indigenous communities are planning to be involved with or are already involved with that are using hydrogen. So we have to find out how to create that right ecosystem. And there will be Indigenous partners in a number of those areas to figure out what is that best use. How will the hydrogen be created? How will it be used?
That's great. And so I guess the next one I see here that's pinned here is, do you have any thoughts on the long-term role of the natural gas resources in BC and the infrastructure that transports it? Sorry, they're bouncing around a little bit up here on the screen there. So yeah, I guess as Enbridge has so many interests in BC, where do you see natural gas going, and how do you see the infrastructure evolving, if you can predict the future?
Okay, so I cannot predict the future. What I can do is say, we've been here for 70 years. We've seen lots of changes with our West Coast system. We have a number of projects that we're working through right now. Expansion of our T-North system with Aspen, the potential to expand our T-South system with our announced Sunrise project, looking at how we want to continue to engage. We have 2 corridors that we want to keep alive and supported to support future development of the West Coast LNG. I really, truly believe that there are a lot of opportunities for continued growth. I believe our infrastructure is going to be used and useful in the long term, even as we look to what that path is to decarbonize energy in BC, in Canada, and North America, and across the world. We understand that there will be more and more renewable energy introduced into that. We're a developer of that. We invest in that. We're excited about that. But we understand, too, that there is going to continue to be a need to have the existing infrastructure, particularly in natural gas, to balance out some of the intermittency that exists with the renewable resources. So that gives us a lot of confidence that we're going to be in a position to continue to develop that infrastructure here for the next 70 years. We're not looking to go anywhere. We want to continue to partner with our existing partners and more Indigenous partners and develop these resources in a very responsible manner. That will set us up, as I mentioned, not just Canada, BC Canada, to ensure that we have that quality of life, but reduce emissions worldwide. When you look at what's happened, in the last 3 years, particularly since COVID, and you look at, some of the biggest producers that have increased, producers of energy that have increased their global emissions, that's coming from India and China, who have become more and more dependent on coal. We know that natural gas has a lower carbon footprint than coal. So this is something that we can all do together to actually reduce worldwide emissions. And as I said, I think we have an obligation to do that.
Great, thank you. And you've described quite a number of different partnerships that Enbridge has, and so working with Indigenous communities, do you have a sense of how support might be provided to Indigenous communities that want to pursue some clean initiatives, but that may not have the internal capacity to take the first steps towards a major project?
Great question. I think I kind of hinted at this. There is no one path forward. But if there is an Indigenous community, obviously all of them I think that we've had a chance to interact with, understand that their stewardship to protect the environment is so critically important. But they also understand that we have to be in a position to provide economic benefits and a quality of life to our, to support their wonderful nations and the communities in which they live and operate. that's going to require us to continue to develop more and more green, renewable projects, figure out how that fits in with the traditional energy infrastructure. And, you know, as I mentioned in my speech, I think it's going to require some government support through a government loan guarantee program. I think, you know, we've had a lot of discussion about that recently. I'm hopeful that that's going to move forward both at a federal level and a provincial level. That will give us some opportunity for funding. But there's a lot of expertise that already exists in the Indigenous groups that we've been working with. And I think there's an opportunity to reach out, partner with other Indigenous groups, partner with industry, and continue to develop that. There's no one right way to do this. The only thing that we have to continue to do is build trusting relationships where we respectfully engage and ensure that we are providing that best opportunity to deliver the best outcome overall that provides the economic benefits, but also protects the environment and works to lowering our emissions overall.
Great, thank you very much. Well, I really appreciate all the time you spent, and I'm going to just give you one last question to end off with, which is just, what are you looking forward to most for 2024?
Oh, Sarah, there's so much to be excited about this year. You know, we have in British Columbia a number of projects that I mentioned that we're moving forward on. That's exciting. I look at how Canada can be positioned to be, you know, from a total world population point of view, our 40 million people are not the biggest population density in the world, but we can have, you know, we can have that opportunity to influence on such a bigger scale, on the world scale, because we're such a resource-rich country. And BC in particular, you know, this is what we're here doing, talking about our natural resources here in BC. And there's so many opportunities. I'm really excited by what kind of position we're going to be able to leverage here from the BC resources. And I think that, you know, as I look forward to what we're going to do together, it's continuing to build those trusting relationships so that we're going to deliver that really, you know, type of opportunity where it's not just one group making a difference, but together we're going to actually evolve so that we are reducing global emissions. You know, I know, you know, whether it's Davos or COP, you know, there's a lot of talk. The thing that excites me is Enbridge and our partners here in the room can make a difference. We are making a difference, and we can actually deliver on that promise.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Round of applause.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks so much, Cynthia and Sarah, for that. My pleasure now to call on Kevin O'Donnell, Executive Director, PLCAC and CPAC, to the stage to thank Ms. Hansen. Kevin. What a great first name. Did I mention that? Thank you, sir.
Well done, Kevin. Well done. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you enjoyed Cynthia's words as much as I did. I have an unfair bias given the fact I worked in pipeline for 30 years and I follow Cynthia and Enbridge very closely. Again, my name is Kevin O'Donnell. I'm the Executive Director of the Pipeline Contractors Association of Canada. We're proud sponsors of the forum today. And I think we're all very fortunate to have a keynote speaker of Cynthia's caliber. On behalf of the forum and our association, it gives me great pleasure to thank Cynthia for your insightful words and messages today. We appreciate just how busy your schedule is, and the fact that you took time out of your busy schedule to entertain us all here today is really deeply appreciated. I'm sure we all gained good comfort hearing how you and Enbridge are strategically approaching the future of energy security, affordability, and social responsibility. Especially noteworthy is Enbridge's continued deep commitment to Indigenous communities. Bless you. So on behalf of all of us here, we'd like to thank you, Cynthia.
Thanks very much, Kevin. And once again, let's give Cynthia a warm BCNRF thank you. And I would ask Kevin and Cynthia to stay for a photo. And just before we give you a little stretch break, we are going to ask that we clear the room and allow our team here at the conference center to reset the room for our next panel. And of course, that is the Honorable Josie Osborne and Chris O'Reilly, CEO of BC Hydro. So you've got about 30 minutes. We'll reconvene at 2:20 sharp. And let's hear it for our friends at Prince Rupert Port Authority for sponsoring our luncheon. Enjoy your half-hour break.